I can understand a person sitting on the railroad station and another person being on the railroad car, and the car goes by at 120 miles an hour.
Yeah,
And
that's all special relativity, which is pretty straightforward. General relativity is harder. And um,
that
he
Einstein,
explains,
God
well, like
darn
that, for
him,
example,
gosh darn him.
and as far as having recovered bodies, organic bodies, I totally dismissed that before because when they describe the aerial maneuvers of these things, documented by many really credible pilots, like the Commander Fravor's a Top Gun grad and 18
Mhm.
years experience. They are taught meticulously because there's a lot of money and depends on it, being able to recognize what they see.
His name is Lex
Commander
Friedman.
Fravor, Fravor.
F
And just look
F
up
F
Lex
E
interview.
F
Lex
F
Friedman interviewed him at length.
Favor.
Fravor.
Fravor.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll put
yeah,
a link up there.
yeah. I can find it because I know how to get Lex Friedman.
Yeah.
We should go to H. Tom. H. Tom.
Um, UFOs become easier to understand if you stop thinking of them as being aeronautical vehicles.
What are they?
I'm
Buffets
not
of
going to say I have no idea what they
buffets
are.
buffets of light or
What
something, or
they
packets of light.
all of the airplanes we know fly by moving through the air and using the forces created on their wings and surfaces
Yeah.
to support themselves. But if you throw a ball through the air, it goes up, it comes down. But there's no reason it has to come down other than that there's nothing supporting it.
Okay.
And if you can imagine putting some kind of a
So in a vacuum, it would go on forever.
yeah, but if you put it in a if you put into the ball a thing that repels gravity,
Okay.
then the ball could stay up there. Gravity is a force.
Okay.
Most forces have anti-forces,
Hmm.
one sort or another.
Um,
So I'm not going to say in imagination, not in theory,
Hmm.
you could have flying baseballs. They would look very strange. They would not behave like objects we're used to seeing
So
because they're not.
we might not recognize them anyway.
Yeah, we see it, and our mind tries to force it into our understanding of objects in the air.
Wow. Hmm.
But I have seen objects in the air that do not act like airplanes. Some of them, the only ones I really saw were, Lord, that was 60 years ago. Some of their actions remind me of some of the modern fighter aircraft that are more vectored thrust objects than they are aeronautic.
This stuff is so far beyond me. It's
I don't know. If you went back 100 years,
I do almost do now.
I almost do too. Um, 25 years before I was born, if you could imagine, I would be sitting in my basement talking to 1, 2, 3, 12, 13 other people who
Sure.
were scattered over the Twin Cities area through use of a box
Yeah.
that I could pick up and put under my arm and walk away with,
Hmm.
hey, people would think you were crazy.
Hmm.
Or say, you've been reading too much science fiction.
Tom, I've known you've been crazy for a decade now, so it doesn't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm at 8 decades and counting right now.
Are you? Yeah.
Doug.
But
Me too.
there are things in the world we can't explain.
That there's more and more. The more I learn, the less I know. So
Yeah.
More things in heaven and earth ratio than your philosophy has dreamed of.
That
yes,
doesn't mean that the explanations we come up with are correct.
it does.
No, it doesn't.
It does not. No.
Correct.
But I don't want to talk about tariffs right now, Tom.
Yeah.
No. But
It
the
has to be
explanations
verifiable.
are what keep us sane, right? We have to, as humans, we have to come up with explanations for what we experience. And if they work and they let us sleep at night, then we're happy, right?
That's true. That's
Doug.
true.
That's
Yes.
where all our myths
I
come from.
have a down to earth question.
Okay.
I went to the Downstream Environmental Film Festival this past week, and
The downstream. Okay.
yeah, it's all over southern Minnesota, and I happened to go to the one in Owatonna. Drove
Okay.
down there,
Okay.
and there was 9 films that were shown, and the last one was really interesting, and that's what my question's about. I'm just curious. It talked about at the Lower Sioux reservation out west of the cities,
Okay.
they are using hempcrete to build houses, and that was, to me, I had not heard of it before.
Mhm.
I ended up talking to a farmer in southern Minnesota on
Mhm.
another issue, asked about him, asked him about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's been around a long time." I'm just curious, has anyone here heard of hempcrete, which is virtually concrete made out of hemp?
Dean has his hand up, I think.
Yeah, I have.
Stan. Yes, Stan, you've heard of it?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, guys, if you build a 2-story house out of hemp crates, do you go higher up into the 3rd story?
Yeah.
You can only build it up to 2 stories, Bob, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's environmentally, it pulls tons of carbon out of the air. It also is flame proof, on and on and on. There's just a lot of good features. This farmer told me that there's a place up in Fargo where they've built a stick home and a hempcrete home, and they're testing to see which one performs better in all kinds of environmental ways. But I was just curious how many other people, Stan, where did you hear about it?
Well, I'm a consummate. I don't watch anything more than YouTube pretty much nowadays. And
Which scares the hell out of me, Stanley.
there was even actually Henry Ford designed a car that had a car body made of hemp.
Yeah, I saw
There's
that. Yeah.
Video of him in black and white and some of his colleagues taking a sledgehammer to it that didn't even dent the thing.
Wow.
But I think that this hempcrete phenomenon is a part of the whole idea of allowing farmers to grow hemp to be able to sequester carbon and to be able to have a cash crop that is competitive with some other things as well.
So it's 10:02. I suppose we should start our actual meeting. Does anybody feel comfortable? Is there anybody who needs to bring something to the fro before I begin?
Yeah, it's Eric. I was just gonna mention. I don't know if I already brought it up before, but I made a $30 contribution on Meetup, and then it was refunded.
Well, because we don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the future is stuck in the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
See, David, we're going to have to get on this. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All
Can
right.
we talk
Can
about
I
it?
real quickly,
Talk about it later. then.
15 seconds. I was waiting for Costco to open. We have to get there half an hour early because there are no parking lots in San Diego. And anyway, well, I don't know how it was an older woman who also occasionally used the cane, and we started talking about CBD and hemp, or she brought it up, and she was a black woman in her 60s, 70s, who knows, and she said hemp is in the Bible, and apparently it is.
I think if you believe in the Bible, you need hemp. So
Wait, I recall
Well,
it's
let's not now. Come on, Matt. Let's not even go there.
in
I
American
don't.
history too, I think.
Nothing political, Bob. Just remember.
Hemp has a long, long, long history.
Oh,
My brother was a sailor. Guess what ropes on sailing ships for centuries were made out of?
Yes, exactly.
Dean, is there? I have to ask you: if you make a house of hempcrete, is it easier to make a high house?
You can only do so 2 floors, but in the other sense, yeah.
I'm trying to make
Yeah,
a
I
fun.
know.
All right, I know
Okay,
this is
okay.
fun.
We should
Hemp
get
is
we
not
should go
a-
to we should go to the meeting.
We
Let's go
need
to
to go to the meeting, Bob. I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
Hey,
Okay.
by the way, Bob, I didn't get your email.
Okay, Stan, did you get the stuff I sent?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, good. God love you. Okay, and I mean that in the best possible way. Okay.
What, capital G or small G?
In my case, it's a small G. But, okay, so to talk about this, first of all, the reason. So I am by nature, or I don't know by nature. I'm a person who has always not understood construction or energy. Okay. It's magical to me. Okay. I don't understand how my house stays up. Not really. And I don't understand why every time I turn on the switch, the light goes on. Not really. I don't really understand it. It's always been kind of magical to me. I mean, I understand things about it, but it's hard for me to grasp the whole gestalt of it. But so it strikes me as I go along my way, also addicted to YouTube, much as Stan is, that we're going to need a lot of energy because we have big plans for a bunch of things, especially artificial intelligence, but even beyond artificial intelligence. And it strikes me that when we have something that we absolutely need for warmth and light and really anything we do, and it comes into any kind of limited supply, unless we have found a kumbaya that's global in nature, we're going to have trouble. And so this is not a presentation that says everything is wonderful. The Tesla is going to come up with a new thing that's going to go 7 times faster than a Porsche, and everything will be wonderful. That's not what this is. Okay. But it's trying to get a handle around how we're trying to deal with our energy needs and what the ramifications might be. Before I show the first 16-minute video, is there anyone who wants to make a brief comment about my preface? Thank you. Okay, so Stan, why don't you do me a favor and play the first video for us? It's 16 minutes, so I didn't cut it, but the next one is long and I cut it into segments. Anybody want to comment or ask questions of things that I don't understand anyway? Okay, Eric?
Oh,
It's people put up your hands, digitally. Eric, did you want to talk?
oh no.
Okay.
about this.
Dean is next, I think.
Dean? Okay, Dean? I can't actually see it, so who?
So Dean has been next for a while.
Oh.
I can lower my hand. Thank you. Why is there so many clicks? All right. So we're going to need this power for AI. So how exactly does that benefit humanity? Needs are keeping my house cool, keeping my house warm, keeping my car charged, et cetera, et cetera. Who needs it is the weasels in the Silicon Tar Pits who are billionaires that want to become trillionaires, right? And this need, we need AI. Really? I posted it, a heroin addict needs drugs. Well, okay, so what? And I think this has become, the Silicon Tar Pits have become the new Jerusalem, and we are worshiping this culture. And back in the day, I had job offers from IBM, NCR, HP, up in the Silicon Tar Pits, and I just didn't see myself in that world. I'd be driving a Maserati now, maybe 2 or 3. Great, but would I be happy? I doubt it. So I think this, why do we need, and I understand all the, okay, it's going to cure cancer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the dark side, the dark cloud to me about AI is thousands of times larger than the silver lining. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to happen. So we don't have a choice. All right. Carol is shaking her head. I'll shut up.
Okay. I wanted to ask Lisa about David Walsh.
Yes, I've seen him interviewed, and he seems to have a good understanding of the energy, but he's primarily focused on, drill baby drill. So,
Oh, is
but
he?
he has a perspective on, solar and how it's just not going to be enough. And I haven't looked at his website. I've just seen him interviewed before, and he seems to be an expert, at least in the old school way of thinking.
Okay, so then thank you, Lisa. Carol, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, the order is
Oh, okay,
Tom,
good.
David, Stan, Carol.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that it seems that it's kind of flipped, that now the U.S. government is emphasizing fossil fuels, but the corporate world is looking into alternatives to that more, because it's actually cheaper, for one thing, solar, among others, than fossil fuels, and can if while the sun is shining, there's more than enough solar energy to power everything. But the problem is it's not always shining. So that's why we need a variety of sources, but and that's why fossil fuel is still good, because that's one of our most reliable 24-hour sources that we have at this point. But then when we talk about fission, fusion, geothermal, and things like that, that I think there will become a time when those will be enough, even for our growing energy needs.
Do you think it'll be by
and
1930?
They'll be cheaper than. The problem with geothermal is basically it's relying on the same technique as our gas industry now. It's fracking.
Yeah.
So
what do you think by 1930 we need twice the amount of energy?
1930?
2030.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
2030. I was
Yeah,
actually
growing at
I
20%
was in high school in 1930, but
it'll be shorter than that, growing at a 20% per year rate, to require twice as much. So the data centers are going to run into limits here in the short term for sure. There are limits to growth right now. And so at this point, we do need to use the variety of energy sources that we have. At some point, I think we will be able to move off fossil fuels, but the entrenched interests are slowing that progress down as much as possible.
Yes. Who's next?
David.
David.
And here's where the futurists really get involved in the discussion, because it's going to be all about cost. It's already all about cost. And as we talked last week, we're not paying the real costs of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are absolutely the cheapest way to go right now, but we're not paying the real costs. And we have a really tunnel vision in the United States that the United States is all that really matters. And unfortunately, that isn't really true. Most of the demand for energy in the world in the next 10 years is going to come from people who don't have it or don't use it nearly as much right now. And we're using up all the cheap energy that we're not paying the real cost for because we can afford it, because we have the money to buy it regardless of the price. It's cheap for us compared to the rest of our economy. That's not exactly true in Central America. That's not exactly true in South America. That's certainly not true in Africa and India.
David, what do you think will be the geopolitical implications of what you've just talked about?
The energy that I've seen that's come down the most in price in the last 10 years has been solar, photovoltaic. Wind is probably the second. Hydrogen, they don't talk very much about it, but the conversion from water to hydrogen to back to water is not really as efficient as we would like it to be. And it's going to be all about efficiency. The thing that they didn't mention when they talk about the AI from China is that it's being done very cheaply compared to the AI from Silicon Valley. It's also being done open source. And so anybody can take advantage of that particular approach, and Silicon Valley will. So the price that we think we're going to need for AI is tremendously inflated, and that price is going to come down too. It's
Do you
really
do you buy the argument that because the cost, I don't know what the price will be, but
Yeah.
because the cost is going to come down significantly, we will greatly expand our use of artificial intelligence, even though we don't necessarily know how we're going to use it?
Well, maybe. And that's where the Luddite argument really comes in. If it's going to cost 80% of us our jobs, are we going to put some political brakes on the use of AI in the next 10 years because we want to save some of our jobs?
My job right now is to say yes to my wife and
Yeah.
do everything. And I think there's a good chance that if I make it 10 more years, we can find someone else to do that. So it'll be a robot. I can stay in bed.
Again, the political demand, the political decisions may make a difference in how much we use robots, how much we use AI, especially if it's costing jobs and the votes say, I go that direction. It's tough to predict future energy demand. It's tough to predict which forms of energy are going to come down more in the next 10 years. The advantage to photovoltaic is you can put it in small pieces or large pieces.
Okay, who's next?
Dan.
Stan? Okay.
Of all the that was a great video for seeing the catalog of other resources that are coming up to power the database concern. Helion is the only one that doesn't do some kind of a steam turbine traditional power resource. It uses more of a like a brake regen, if you want to use the analogy. Regarding the why from Dean's question, why do we, why are all of a sudden are the energy conscious or global warming conscious in Silicon Valley, the Googles and the Apples and the macro centers and so forth, why have they all of a sudden flipped, which is what they've done on this issue of creating more data from machine learning, and they have flipped. And I would say that the argument that they're going to hear, I think I'm hearing it already, is a national security argument, that we cannot drop the ball on this race to the bottom with AI because of the, in quotes, national security issues involved with that. That to me is Moloch. It's what the
that is Moloch. That's Moloch.
And that's, if you go back to, I've got the book here from the guy that did, what's the guy that did that book from MIT. I got the book right over there. I can't remember his name. Max Tegmark.
Max Tegmark.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is a question to Doug again, is that Minneapolis is trying in an experiment with Form Energy to use the iron air system. And I always thought of that as being a possible solution as well. I know that iron air batteries wasn't mentioned in this particular video. The one thing that was mentioned in this video that I was not aware of, well, Oklo, I wasn't aware of them, but I think they're using what I call the billiard ball fission system. But this exawatt kind of reminds me of those mirrors shining on a salt tower. They're not doing photovoltaic. They're just heating up something and then letting it power a thermal generator. So that, but the units were pretty affordable. Whenever you hear them saying we got a unit that's under $100 million or something like that, that seems like it's a pretty, maybe it was $75,000 a unit or something like that. That seems to be very affordable. And I have to do some more research.
I think he said $7,500 a unit, which is.
What was it, $7,500?
Yeah, I thought that's what he said.
So they had the magnifying mirrors, the reflectors. It reminds me of when I was a kid using a microscope to torture ants or whatever.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what I thought I heard.
I'm going to go back and look at that. But thank you for that video, Bob. I'll get out. I'm going to get out of here.
I'm just going to make a quick comment. I think that we're scared as a species. We're scared in the U.S., but we're scared everywhere because we have lived a life where we have lived a life of free lunch, and we're beginning to understand that even at the poorer countries, and certainly the more developed countries, there is no free lunch, and that we're hoping that AI gets to super intelligence and will solve so many things for us that will come out of this thing without any big disasters. And I think that the trek that is defined by Moloch is merely a trek of power, and that the people who are at OpenAI and the other places that are building up this technology, both in the U.S. and China and elsewhere, are seeing that that's where the real source of power is going to be. If there is super intelligence and the ability to actually make a paradigm shift in what it means to humanity, is a sales tool, a marketing tool that they're using to convince us to go along with this. On the other hand, it may be true. Maybe this does happen, and there is a paradigm shift in what it means to be human. But I'm skeptical. I think that that we're the kind of species that really like power and dominance, and we like to not pay for what we use. And so we'll see how this all works out. But I think that that's what's really happening here. But that's just my comments. Who's next?
Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. Jean, this is an answer to your objection. And you are suggesting that what AI is these silly chatbots that are writing term papers
that's not
and
what it is.
painting pictures and things like that. And you're right about that. It just being vanity and power seeking. But the real AI that we have a real need for is the AI that got 3/4 of the Nobel Prize in chemistry for last year.
Yeah.
Because of solving the protein folding problem. There's a really big difference between, as I say, chatbots, which people think of as the new AI, or game playing things that, wow, we beat the Go Master. But real AI, real intelligence, is doing really significant things at the frontiers of science. And that's the one that we need.
And so we have some evidence that my concern shouldn't be all that much, because we have, in fact, made advances in terms of protein folding and how to use our ability to fold proteins in all sorts of different kinds of applications. I hope that this is true, but my life seems full of salesmen and con men these days, and so I'm a little bit more skeptical. But I hope you're right.
Well, I
think
suggesting...
Demis, whatever his last name is extraordinary, and I hope that he's able to take his technology and make many advancements in science and technology.
He's working on fusion right now, and we're optimistic about fusion because of that, considering it past miracles to me.
Bruce, you're next.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Hey, this is a little bit of a response to Dean's criticism of AI. We are creating a world that nobody wants. That is a quote from a podcast by Daniel Schellenberger.
Yeah.
And he says that basically that we have to, if we don't pursue AI, China will pursue AI. We are forced into this competition that will result in us creating a world that nobody wants. That's all I have to say.
So how are they selling this to us?
I don't know what you
On
mean.
the Google infomercials that you guys suck down like Kool-Aid. Those are infomercials.
Chris, how do you think they're selling this to us? Competition, national security. We have to We have to, if we don't do it, China will do it. It's that old thing. And there's a legitimacy to it. It's like an arms race. There is a legitimacy to this competition and our need to pursue AI, because if we don't, China will get it. It's legitimate, but that doesn't mean that it is a race to create a world that nobody wants. That's all I'm saying. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. I won't ask you any more questions ever. Okay.
Okay, Doug.
Okay. Who's anybody else?
Doug.
Doug wants to just say that on a local level, I just wanted to share with you all that XL Energy has just put in 1.7 million solar panels up at Becker, and they are using and plan on using the iron air batteries, and they also plan on using agrivoltaics in the sense that they're going to have sheep grazing under the panels, which is another technology that's become very popular around the country. Also, I just wanted to say, Bob, that was a great video. I really enjoyed it. It's good to see some of the other potential things that are out there. I also am a big believer in solar, and the issue of batteries. I think Stan mentioned that, but I think that probably in the near future is our best hope. So, thank you.
You bet. Is there? Hopefully, there's not too many others. And unless
Tom,
you really
just a couple more.
Okay, make them quick, please. Okay.
Tom.
H-Tom. H-Tom.
He's muted.
Yeah. We're going to cook our planet. When data centers are 99% efficient, that means that 1% of their input goes off as heat. I don't know what modern AIs are using for CPUs, but I would think that any data center that's using a CPU with a floating point processor probably should be rearranged. We're heating a bunch of silicone for no good, except to heat the atmosphere.
Well, I think that living in a world where we're cooking ourselves is not the world we really want. So, thank you, H.
Yeah.
Tom.
The other thing is that what is driving a lot of this is a fear of losing.
Sure. Not just the hope of gaining, but the fear of losing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two big tools of Moloch. Okay. Who else is there?
Eric, we still have three more. Eric.
Okay. Eric,
Oh,
make it
no,
quick.
my
Make
hand's
it
not
quick,
up.
please. Okay.
My hand's not up.
Oh, okay. Who's next?
Eric, both, not Eric Hand, Eric Bolton.
Okay.
But maybe he's not at his desk. So go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, real quick, I'm unmuted. I'm a numbers guy. I want to put it in my slide rule, my Pickett slide rule. So what percentage of the benefit from AI is real, and what percentage of it is BS to just make people rich? You see, that's I want to see that number.
So I was just listening to a guy named Harold. Oh God, I can't remember his last name. I'll send you the little video, but it's on tariffs. And when the interviewer asked him, how can you measure the returns that we'll get on tariffs? And he said, you can't use the word measure, because there's so much uncertainty that to fool yourself that you can actually make a measurement when you can't is folly.
Heisenberg. It's Heisenberg.
Yeah. Okay. Who's next?
I am.
Okay, Tom.
Just a quick thing on AI. Yes, AI has potential to do a lot of great things that can help humanity in the fields of medicine and science in general. But as we approach ASI, superintelligence, with self-programming machines and so forth, we're loosing something on the world that has never been created before. We have no idea what could happen with it. And we're just hoping that ASI's goals will align with ours.
Do we have any reason to,
true.
Tom, in your opinion, do we have any reason to validate that hope?
No, it's basically a hope, as far as I can tell. So this race, I understand it's like the nuclear arms race. It's something that could wipe out humanity, but we're going to do it anyway. And we'll hope that it ends up well, but we really don't know. So yes, we could maybe cure cancer. We could do a lot of great things. But there are a lot of other things that could come out of this that would not necessarily be good for humanity. Maybe better for the world as a whole, but not for humanity. So
luckily, I don't have cancer, at least not yet. So curing
as far
cancer,
as you know,
as far as I know,
everyone has a little cancer. Your body's always fighting.
everything I have is little. But the my concern about curing cancer is not as much as it would be as if I had cancer. So at least I knew I had cancer, and I think that I think people are so self-concerned that oh, Jack, the potential for cancer. What is it, Jack?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, I looked that up, the whole idea that everyone has a little cancer. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think everybody has the potential for cancer, but not actually having cancer.
No.
Cancer cells.
No. Everyone produces cancer cells every single day of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And the
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, that's what
I'll look it up again, but the last time I looked it up,
that's
I
a
think
futurist meeting. That's a futurist meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to run that
meeting.
futurist meeting. Okay.
Right.
But that would be a good topic for a futurist meeting.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to try Eric Bolton once more, see if he's
okay. Eric,
are you there? I guess not. So H-Tom, you're the last person. No more hand raising.
No more hands because we got to get to the other video. We're never going to get through the other video, but that's okay.
I just have to stick my nose in and say that self-programming computers have been around since 1970. I know because I built one and I had to pull a power switch on it to make it stop.
I'm a
self-programmed. My boss did not like that.
I'm a computer that is in a loop, okay? And I do the same stupid things again and again and again. And the only reason that I know I have consciousness is because I realize that I'm doing the same stupid thing again and again and again, even though I seem to be not able to stop. So
well, that whole question of what is consciousness is a good one, but something.
Okay, let's start the next meeting. Oh, and I want the next thing, and let me just look up where we're stopping. We're going to stop at 19 minutes and 17 seconds. Okay? How long did we get into that? I lost being able to time it, but I think we're at around 20 minutes or so, are we?
Yeah. Stan, Bob asked you to pause it about 10 minutes ago.
Well, yeah, all I wanted to say about that was that it's impossible to get something really good and have it be really recent and not have the name Biden and the name Trump mentioned. Okay. In addition to that, Nate Higgins is a liberal. Okay. So the people that he brings on are quite liberal. I've tried to find one that doesn't go overboard with a liberal bias and just talks about facts and expert opinions, but doesn't really use deep criticism of either party's efforts in this way. But this is the best I could do, and it's pretty darn good. But if we're at 20 minutes, we might stop and see if anybody has any comments to talk.
There are two hands up.
All right, who's first?
Well, Eric Wilson's hand is still up, but I don't know if he's
Eric,
good.
where are you, baby? Come on. Come to Papa. Come on. No.
Eric's hand is
I apologize for not pausing the video earlier, but I was in the bathroom.
You're excused, Dan.
Yeah, you're excused.
Let me try to be brief. I don't see a lot of hands up, but everyone has an agenda, right? Whatever that agenda may be. And everyone speaks from an agenda. But I wanted to ask Bob a personal question. I don't care about AI curing cancer because I don't have it, and I don't believe I'm going to get it. And I believe that too in my family because we didn't have a history until my baby sister came down with stage 4 incurable cancer out of the blue. Suddenly I became interested in cancer. I mean, I have always been interested in it for altruistic reasons. As in, no, I don't want people dying from cancer. It should be a curable disease, but it ain't polio and it ain't, it's not that simple.
I was just merely commenting on the fact that my ability to be altruistic is increased the quicker it also affects me. Someday I'll tell you a long joke about the farmer and his neighbor.
Okay, I've probably got some longer jokes, but
okay.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. When it affects you, when the farmers are going out of business, suddenly they become believers in climate change, right?
Especially if you're a farmer.
Especially.
So, yeah.
Eric's next.
If you mean
Eric Hand.
Okay, if you mean Bob, somebody that seems to, best I can tell, is neutral and just.
I've got the book. I find it very hard to read. I suppose for a mind like yours, it's easy, but for me, this book has been very hard for me to read.
Oh, that's Vaclav Smil, How the World Really Works, and because I think partly he's retired, you have to be independent, and not at the mercy of whatever institution you work for to really write it objectively, I think.
I think having no dog and
pony
in the race, is that what they would say?
Yeah, you have to be financially independent, partly. Yeah, not the heavy personal stake on one side or the other.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was hard. I don't know. Anybody else read it? Or I think it's one of the most objective books about energy.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it again. It made me have a headache, but I will.
Eric, can you post that title or author or something?
Yeah, sure. Another guy who writes is Bryce, and he just talks about energy density as an objective quantitative term that you always have to consider, like.
And that's one of the criticisms of solar photovoltaic, is that solar energy is very widely distributed and difficult to take advantage of. But at present, our technology takes advantage of it in small quantities at low price.
Yeah. And other people have talked about increasing transmission or reducing the cost of transmission. Cameron told me it's only practical for about 300 miles now, but some people, I don't know, I'm not an electrical engineer, but some people talk about going back to direct current transmission and so on. But I wish we could get somebody that knew what quantitatively knew what they're talking about and could tell us the pros and cons and prospects of such things. Then all these other things like solar and wind might be more practical if you could transmit them where they're reliable. They are the best in some areas, like Southern California desert areas is so pretty reliable solar, and some of the Midwest, Texas, you can have wind pretty often. But if we
Yeah,
could
there it is.
transmit it and back and forth where needed, from where it's reliable, that would help a huge amount. But I don't know what the feasibility of that is.
I just looked at my Audible. I did listen to more than half of that book. I'll go into, I have it on Audible. I don't actually have the book physically. So
Yeah, see, a guy named Bryce also writes I think very objectively about energy density and so on.
I wanted to bring up one quick thing.
Quantitatively.
I love words, okay? And they don't love me all the time, but I love them. And the word cacophony that he used, I don't know if anybody caught it, but I thought that was
it's one of my favorite words, Bob.
Yeah, I thought it was great. So get pleasure in small things.
Yeah. Part of what Eric said, I think is important. What's probably the determining factor in a lot of these our energy sources is transmission. We built a road and rail infrastructure to truck coal and oil all over the place. We're still building electrical infrastructure to handle the load, and we're not there yet because the load keeps increasing. So, and then the other problem with nuclear is so far we've only had large centralized facilities. Well, if we can make these smaller nuclear plants that can produce power,
is that a realistic thing?
More distributive fashion, that would be easier to actually use.
Is that a realistic thing? Is there real safety in that?
Not in the short term. Maybe in 10, 15 years, but fusion power, there's been great strides made in just the last year. Who knows, that might be a solution at some point.
I mean, why wouldn't you put one in every neighborhood, and why wouldn't you have
exactly?
I don't know. It seems to me too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether it's actually becomes practical or not is to be seen. Hydrogen is promising, but as was made earlier in, I think, somewhere today, currently 80% of it is produced by dirty sources. So it's not all that clean if you take it from start to finish. An advantage of it, it is quite portable. I mean, the small canister of hydrogen can power a car for a lot more miles than a tank full of gasoline. So
under very, very extreme pressure, correct?
It's pressurized. But the common denominator of all this stuff is transmission, portability, and so that's a problem that has to be solved for all these things. It's not just the production,
along with other problems. But yes, obviously that is correct.
Yeah.
Any other hands up? No. Okay, Stan. Let's go on. We're going to try to stop at 39. Let's say 40 minutes.
Real quick, my dad years ago had a Ford Taurus dual fuel, had LNG tank in the massive trunk, and the darn thing between gas and LNG, gasoline and LNG, had an 850-mile range.
Wow. And by the way,
I think somebody's commenting on a frozen screen of mine.
Yes.
I had tried to stop recording and I hit the wrong button, and I think I stopped the actual transmission of the video.
Okay.
Well, we could still hear the audio.
Yes, we could, and that's the most important.
Well, okay.
But if you can get it back, that would be great.
No, I think it's back now, so we'll watch this.
But instead of doing them for economic targets, for example, you want a 3% fiscal deficit and nothing bigger, or you only want 2% CPI and nothing higher, yada, yada, yada. Instead of doing that, you're doing them for foreign policy or national security reasons, that there's a larger strategic purpose. In fact, the terminology I've been trying to use as my shtick for a while is, what's GDP for? And I think you've maybe heard me say that before, and I'm going to keep asking it. And
what happens if Trump puts the kibosh on that? Okay, what are their options for getting energy? I don't know. Also, did we not damage the pipe from Russia running to Germany to get gas?
Oh yeah, we took it out. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, those are interesting geopolitical questions that are more tangible and could be done quickly. And it's not really, my imagination is that Trump could do that. He could do that. It's possible.
Well, there is a interesting video I saw recently about the idea of what they call the bomber mafia. And there was this belief after World War I that you could actually do tactical bombings to be able to have a, in quotes, casualty-free or a reduced casualty warfare, which we actually tried that. There was an actual bomb site that was developed for the Second World War that didn't work out. Was it called the Norton bomb site or something like that? Didn't really work out very well, so they weren't able to hit the fuel and the bridges and the factories and so forth where they thought they could actually take down a city without having to have a, in quotes, open warfare. And we're better at that now with drones and that kind of thing. But the idea of being able to do tactical surgical warfare failed in Japan, and Curtis LeMay came into play and just started carpet bombing with napalm, except the last two cities that they didn't carpet bomb with napalm, they did with nuclear bombs. And
they were pretty effective.
But please remember that more people were killed in the firebombing of Dresden than were killed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined.
I wonder how actually fragile Europe is in terms of its energy, its needs for energy. I know that Germany is, but probably France is less because of nuclear, but and probably England has its own, and probably the Scandinavians have their own. So
France is doing quite well, I understand, with their safe nuclear. Yep.
Yeah.
David.
It seems to me that it's pretty clear that if we go to war, we're going to that's going to be a negative.
Wait a minute, if or when?
If, that's going to be a pretty negative impact on our economies. And their point about the size of Europe's economy and the size of Russia's economy is absolutely correct. But essentially, we're dealing with terrorists with nuclear bombs. And so the potential is that that's going to be an existential risk for some of the countries in the world if Russia gets pushed to the point of having to use nuclear bombs. And so by Trump backing off from NATO, he's basically telling the rest of the world that you all have to have nuclear bombs too if you want to protect yourselves.
So proliferation is likely.
Proliferation is very likely. And the point that Nate makes with the discussion about why Trump is drill baby drill is because that's where in the past the United States has had the strength, and Trump is smart enough to see that. He's smart enough to run a reality TV show. And that's what he's doing right now.
Yep.
He's running a reality TV show.
Survivor Part 2, yeah.
We have 4 minutes. Who's the next one? I have to go. I report to a higher power.
Don't we all? Yeah.
Well,
Eric Hand.
If you want to talk about energy and geopolitics, I want to know who has been preventing Ukraine. Well, the obvious way to cripple the Russian energy war effort is to hit their energy exports. Ukraine was the Silicon Valley of the Soviet military establishment. What has prevented? Who's prevented Ukraine from actually seriously getting a chance to win, like by sinking Russian tankers? I'm sure they could do it. It's not that we could give them a couple of old submarines. Can't be that hard to sink an oil tanker when they're they don't have military escorts. I totally assume because they don't really want Ukraine to win. They're just terrified of that Putin will escalate to nukes.
I think, Eric, that making those kinds of attacks may have been a part of the criteria for not doing it, part of the criteria of getting the money and the weapons from the United States through the Biden administration. I don't know what's happening now in terms of them being able to do it, because they don't have the kind of support that they used to have from the Americans.
There's plenty of old second-rate submarines around. Why hasn't anyone given, of our side, given Ukraine a couple of old submarines? Or even the drones they could sink with the new Neptune 2 or Neptune long rocket. Now they could easily sink Russian tankers. Why don't they? Who's preventing them? Obviously,
David, do you have anything to say about that? David, do you have anything to say about that?
Ukraine is hitting Russian oil refineries.
A little bit.
Has been rather successful at that.
With tankers, it wouldn't take many sinkings, or they wouldn't sail. They don't. Nobody would sail.
At what environmental cost, Eric?
What, a couple of tankers compared to the cost of like an accident at Chernobyl or the other nuclear reactor they're fighting over now? Well, that's a bigger risk, I think, than one or two. Russians already have some oil tankers. It was just, and they will happen more if the war goes on.
If you destroy the Soviet oil structure, by which I include gasoline and other fuel things, you are going to end up with a horde of Russians who are not going to freeze quietly in the dark.
Say that again.
If you destroy the Soviet power system, you will end up with 500,000 Russians who are not going to quietly starve in the cold and dark. You're going to be invaded by a mob of angry, hungry Russians.
Who will be invaded?
The Ukraine will be blamed for having done this, regardless of who does do it.
Interesting.
Hopefully nobody will.
Interesting. Guys, it's 12 o'clock. I hope everyone enjoyed this and found it interesting. Yay for me.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
I'll be back again on the 5th Saturday of May.
And I will be here next week with the future of farming.
Future of farming sounds interesting.
Where is lunch going to come from? What's going to be in it?
See,
how far did it come?
Yeah.
How do you know it's safe?
I look forward to that presentation. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Excellent thought-provoking presentation.
Bob. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Bye.